Paycheck to paycheck, my life's a mess. My living situation is a wreck. I'm struggling stressed. Even though my heart is heavy, baby, I know my kids are blessed. So fuck you and fuck the rest. Same old story, a soldier going for glory, a struggle for my family, even I have to do it illegally. I got a 9 to 5 just to get by. I do what I gotta do, survive. Keep my head afloat, I time my bill, I never cry. You can say what you wanna say, partner, keep it to yourself. Blowing everything out the way, partner, for messing with my health. I'm not irrational, only if you're messing with my anger, nigga. That's when I take it personal. Why do you make my mother cry? Unlimited tears don't dry. No matter how much time flies, hearts of haters will die. Your pain is filled with sin, fighting against your kin. Play the game of life, nigga, you would never win. Sending our sons off the war like a rocket. Economy so fucked up, it's killing my pockets. Family who are dope here doing anything for that pocket rocket. Grimy suit niggas scheming off the top of my profits. My profits. Paycheck to paycheck, my life's a mess. My living situation is a wreck. I'm struggling stressed. Even though my heart is heavy, baby, I know my kids are blessed. So fuck you and fuck the rest. First thing first, on the second verse, I'm holding on some change. Ready to knock a non-believer out the fucking frame. I know some things you cannot change, but you can always change. Keep my faith and push for bigger and better, man, you understand? Got my priority straight, shaking the bacon, all these fake. Sometimes I give, nigga, but Ross is always on the tape. I got 5 kids and I need it now. Anyhow, by any means, I'm out for dead presidents to represent me. I'm on that fake route, if I have any doubt, I'm out. But for the time being, I'm praying for a drought. Taking all competitors out and still collecting a check. Wishing a motherfucker would come and disrespect. I'll make a hater feel how real my deal is. It's all personal when you're messing with my family biz. If you think I'm crazy now, see how I would react. If you touch my kid, smash you with a bat and peel your cat back. Paycheck to paycheck, my life's a mess. My living situation is a wreck. I'm struggling stressed. Even though my heart is heavy, baby, I know my kids are blessed. So fuck you and fuck the rest. I'm not really a violent person, but lately my luck has hit the fan. Still looking for the re-up, man. My boss is getting my last nerve, man. But I still gotta get a guap for my seeds. This paper chasing will never stop. Oh, please believe. Get caught on my route, and right there you get dropped to your knee. See you on my block, and you get popped 6 feet deep. For my seeds, I reach for the mountain peak. All proceeds go to jail, so I give a shit about me. And with this music thing, I'm going after my dream. Even if it's English music, not amounting to anything.
Welcome, and thank you for coming down the rabbit hole today to Unaltered 1776 Radio Podcast. Established for the people, small businesses, and patriots of the United States of America. You can offer show content by sending suggestions to fatjacksmedia@gmail.com, and that intro song was brought to you by Rasta Tome from Backroad Records. You can download any of their songs for free on reverbnation.com/Backroad Records. This show is specially dedicated to George Floyd today. You can get all your Unaltered merchandise by going to unaltered1776.myshopify.com or by clicking the link at the top of the screen. Along with any of the other Unaltered pages are in those links. But if you're tired of being tracked and monitored, I suggest going to wokepatriots.com as a source of freedom and information sharing for the patriot and your family. We all have moments in our lives where we're tested, and in those moments, when we can truly shine, it just, however, what happens when you're about to shine and you really stand up for both your rights and your way of life, and then you end up falling down a rabbit hole. See, we try and make sense of certain things we see. And sometimes the things we see are have good ideas and good intentions, but have bad influencers. It's a damn shame. That's why today I've invited you down our little rabbit hole, because I imagine, just like most all my viewers, nothing is really adding up at this point. You haven't been able to place it, haven't been able to put your finger on it. So without further ado, Let me welcome back Carrie Donovan from last week as we discuss the definite, the strange, and the resolution to riot agitators, reopen NC progressive tactics and ideals and actions, and the Blue Igloo Boys, and why we have all been piled in with the agitators and played against each faction that is protesting, and what the solution should be. We've got a long show, or a lot of stuff to do, and only about an hour to do it. So, without further ado, I want everybody to welcome back Carrie Donovan. Hey, I wish I had a bunch of screaming people to say, "Yay, Carrie!
Woo!
Yay!"
Well, I appreciate it, Jax. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So,
hmm
we've been in the rabbit hole together for quite a few weeks. There was a whole lot of light, and then we just tripped and fell down this, Alice in Wonderland hole.
Yeah.
And I think from the general consensus of people walking around that have common sense and logical thinking ability, that they're in the same place we are. What do you think?
Mm. Well, they should be if they're not, because things got really crazy. Things got really weird for us um, with what was going on with just what we were trying to do with this one little teeny tiny reopen movement, right?
Yeah.
And it felt like we were kind of, in a hurricane. I say in the eye of the political hurricane. We were there for a few weeks, running around, getting stories, meeting people, getting people lined up, getting a website, a podcast, different pages, all kinds of things going on.
Doing interviews and talking to lawyers and politicians, and all we were
Right?
trying to do was just be a small piece of the bigger picture, and we
Right.
ended up falling over all kinds of rocks and stumps, and
Right.
here we are in this hole. You
Here we are
know,
in this hole.
I
Yep.
don't know if you heard, but I've dedicated this program today to George Floyd. God
Yes.
rest his soul.
hmm
Um,
And so
so
then this thing happened, right? And
yeah,
it's
yeah. So
helping.
let's start off with the murder of George Floyd,
Okay.
and basically we've been seeing a lot of things, and we see that Black Lives Matter has also caught on to it, and so today we're reaching out with a little bit of solitude and definitely an olive branch to Black Lives Matter, and hoping that we could find a couple of things. So with that being said, what I want to do right now is I want to play our audience a couple of clips and just kind of show
hmm
them some of the things we're talking about. This is clip number 1 right here. And I'll just take a look at this and then we'll discuss it. And so what you have is somebody's watching the peaceful protest in Minneapolis, and then you just hear glass breaking. You turn around and you see this kook with an umbrella and a hammer, and he's just walking down this auto zone, breaking the windows. Well, somebody immediately approaches him and says, "Hey, listen, stop what you're doing." And obviously it's very weird. Why the fuck does he have an umbrella? First of all, it's not raining. And so they confront him. Like, "Hey, why did you just do that?" Because now everybody's acting weird. All right, and I'm just going to let a couple of more seconds of this play. See, my man actually goes up and tries to find out who he is. I wanted just enough so that you could see the ethnicity of the gentleman in question, because as you can see, he looks predominantly white. Yes, he has gloves on, but we're going to kind of go with that for the moment. Okay, and let me blow this up and make sure that you guys can see this next video, which we are now going to go straight forward to another clip of a lady that is basically seeing two young white females spray painting graffiti all over the walls, and she confronts them. And as you can see from the cuff, and obviously the hands of the other one, yep, yep. And you guys heard that. Very, very reasonable concern that she had there, where somebody else was spray painting and they would catch the blame for it. Now let me go to the very last one, and this one caught me the most off guard, I believe. As soon as I can figure out how to go back, there we go. And this has to be the most concerning of them all. So I'm turning it down a little bit. I actually did some good research on this. Pallets of bricks were laid in 13 major cities, including Raleigh, right before the riots happened. Somebody was out to get some people, I believe, and so what we have here is very, very good proof that people have either been paid or have been basically hired agitators to come in and ruin good movements. And so today that's going to be a huge part of our show. The reason I have Carrie in today is because she is actually quite knowledgeable about one of the factions, probably the main faction of agitators that are in. And so that brings us to the next point. Antifa. Carrie, what do you know about Antifa?
Well, what I know about Antifa is I was a community organizer. So I was a Democrat community organizer. I have a 4-year degree in it, so I know the game plan. I know the ground game for Antifa. And Antifa is a group of people here in the United States that really got their origins, in foreign countries, but they're very Marxist. So that's Karl Marx, Marxism. They are authoritarian. So they call themselves anti-fascist, but they are really actually authoritarian. And you will hear them say, as I just pointed out in an article I wrote today, that what they want is they want their way. And they even will say that you won't do what we tell you to do. Therefore, they are authoritarian. Authoritarianism is communism. So Antifa is a group of people who, much like myself, many of them are good people who fell into being indoctrinated. They were, emotionally agitated group of people. Some of them are criminals. Some, think about where the criminals who got released because of the pandemic out of prison. They would naturally gravitate to Antifa. And there's sort of different layers of Antifa. And the one layer that is currently infiltrating peaceful movements like Black Lives Matter is this. They're the very violent agitators, the black bloc that goes in and really starts up the violence, not black as in pigmentation, but just that's just the name.
They're basically taking advantage of ethnic struggle to basically fuel communist propaganda, right?
Yes, so that's Antifa, and I wanted to make the point with you that Black Lives Matter started as a peaceful protest against police violence with legitimate concerns, just like a number of other organizations started with legitimate concerns on both the left and the right. You wouldn't have to agree with them to say, well, that's a legitimate concern, right? Bring it to the table, let's hear about it. The problem is you're getting these groups that are like Antifa, and Antifa is made up of sort of the Occupy Wall Street, Occupy movements, right? So they've been funneled into this Antifa, which Antifa is actually a global organization. And it is an organization because if you fly the Antifa flag, who comes running? A bunch of people. That means it's a group.
Yeah, and it's definitely, if you don't know and I know you know, Carrie, but I'm just explaining to our listeners that the main funding source of Antifa is George Soros. And I know that everybody's at least heard his name. You really need to know that if he went to certain places around the world, he'd be murdered because he has ruined entire nations and countries.
Yep.
And so you should know that. But one thing, and I see it, this is the main reason why I'm so passionate about talking about this tonight, is that there is nobody that I know that didn't see a majority of the rioting happening by white people. What the hell happened? White parents, you stopped whipping your kids? Where the hell were your kids last night? Because they were probably out giving Black Lives Matter a bad name. You know, one thing that my dad always told me was, if you were going to go help somebody, represent them well. And what you've done is, for the very few people that you see, you know, and I'm speaking in Raleigh terms. We've been glued to the screen for a couple of days now about what's happening in Raleigh. So what I'm actually speaking about right now is right here in North Carolina. And I'm telling you what, if your kids have spray paint on their fingers or powder burns from smoke bombs, I don't know too many black people rolling around with smoke grenades in their backpacks. Okay? And so beat your damn kids if they got paint on their fingers and you didn't just watch them paint something, okay? So I guess to the next point, a word that kind of is creeped up in the last 2 weeks, because they decided to grab some rifles and go on what they're calling an iron walk. It was not a protest. It was simply just to state, hey, we have Second Amendment rights. The Blue Igloo. You know, why is it so important to vilify them from basically the greater good? You know.
Well, they're being vilified right now. The wider group, I don't know who's all in the group, but the group that I saw downtown Raleigh, I went to interview them, and they're antagonizing them and trying to attach protest signs to them being very close, because the law is, and the Raleigh police were saying, you cannot have guns at a protest. And the Blue Igloo guys were saying, we're not protesting anything. We're just taking a walk and using our rights. Well, Antifa was there, and they had protest signs, and they were trying to follow behind closely with the guys who had the iron, right? I wrote an article about that. It's up at reopennc.com, and it's, if you search Blue Igloo, you'll see it, that they were taking a walk, and the protesters were stalking them. And I have video footage of them doing that. So the problem that I see, and I suspected that there's something going on because I'm a student of this kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
I've studied leftist movements. I know what to expect because I've been watching them for many years, all these different protest movements. And I suspected that something weird was going on when we were downtown at a Reopen event. And there were guys that were talking about something that was happening on a following day, but that it didn't have anything to do with Reopen. And I thought, this is kind of weird. So I made sure to go down there. The reason why people want to know about this is because the media, who are allies and comrades with Antifa, and this is not a conspiracy kook theory, this is not crazy stuff. William Barr is talking about, the Attorney General is talking about releasing the communications between Antifa and their media allies, okay?
Right.
Bookmark that, because they're frightening, the media is frightening all kinds of people in our community with this nonsense about these massive white supremacists with guns who are, just looking to shoot people for racial, and they're stirring the pot because they're agitating people. They agitate people on many different levels.
I also have a point of view, and this really, let me break off real quick. And for those who are watching, the Boogaloo, which the Blue Igloo boys, if you say it really fast, is just Boogaloo, is an event. It is not a movement. It was used mostly in the military. It has become the meaning of the second coming of the Civil War, or the non-zombie apocalypse, if that makes sense to you. It has been used to try and stir racial tensions by saying only the really, really far-right white hooded-wearing individuals use that term. The truth is that it is widely used by veterans and military alike, and it is widespread enough to use as leverage to raise racial tensions. And the thing that I think that they use it for is to prevent black people from putting a rifle on their arm and going and joining them. I encourage everybody right now to go and look up the Blue Igloo Boys on Facebook. I think it's just Blue Igloo, and look. In fact, the head of the group specifically that we're talking about was out there for the first day of the riots and was spraying people, anybody that had been pepper sprayed with mace in the face or had gotten one of those, what's that, CS gas on them. He had a backpack full of baking soda and water and was spraying it on people's eyes so that they could continue to stay and protest. This does not sound like the leftist media portrayal of a bunch of guys with a red cross and wearing a white gown and a white hat and covering their face. This man was a Marine, and I'm telling you, I've literally only heard that term used by veterans and military people.
Well, that's because the narrative is more powerful than the statistics. I'm literally just reading a tweet that said that. It's important to understand who the different groups are and what their motivations are, and who is intentionally trying to tie what together to run to the media and claim that there's a narrative. It's not just like high school infighting on Facebook. It's very powerful because it can be used as propaganda. And that's the reason why that you want to make sure before you get scared, investigate who people are. I saw tweets last night saying basically that the Blue Igloo guys from Raleigh were in Minnesota with rifles, and there was a picture of two guys getting out of a car, who knows where it was, but just putting that together shapes the narrative. Then they tweeted it over in the Raleigh stream. And Twitter is really where people go to follow and to, they're really communicating a lot on Twitter, who's doing what, where they're going. All of their comms are on Twitter. So to get that into the stream and then to get the story moving, I believe that Indie Week even picked something up from this kind of mass hysteria without investigating who really are Blue Igloo, what do they want, what are they doing. And when I went to interview them, they basically said, we're here to use our rights, because if we don't use our rights, we lose our rights. Had nothing to do with opening businesses, had nothing to do with police violence, had nothing, they were doing no protest whatsoever.
I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I told some of my friends this the other day, that this whole time in this rabbit hole, I haven't been able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's all making a lot more clearer sense right now. And that just by watching, WRAL follow around the people that were marching, people would come up to him and say, listen, don't you just assume stuff about them? They're not planning anything. They're just talking. They're just resting. Why don't you go over there and talk to them and find out? And so the Black Lives Matter movement also knows, or at least has a damn good feeling, there's some propaganda and some word switching is involved. And then you also have George Floyd's brother, who went out on a press release or in front of the press and called for peace. And one of the things that I really loved about what he said was at the very end, he said, you know how we change it? We change it when we vote. But we don't want to follow the narrative that we've always followed and being told who to vote for. He said, knowledge is power. Go out and empower yourself with knowledge. Look at these candidates and what they actually stand for and vote on them on their principle. And that to me is a huge deal, because party lines break up groups. And what we're trying to do is have a solid unity, because for the first time ever, we have a murder of an innocent man, and all caught on camera, in 100% of the United States of America, in the world, is calling it a murder, even though we haven't had a fair trial. And so that right there was the platform to change all things. And now, even the police officers that arrested me have come out with a public statement stating that they do not agree with what happened, and that it is the duty of police officers to keep this from ever happening again. And then all of a sudden you have Antifa, people are, the higher ups are seeing oh man, we might be losing this thing. Let's throw some agitators in the mix. Let's bus them in from out of state. And I know a lot of people are hearing that too. But I specifically on a gentleman's live feed heard somebody else going live and say, "Hey, I'm in North Carolina right now." And why would you say that if you were from North Carolina? You know what I mean? And so we've got all kinds of proof. Fireworks, right? We saw tons and tons of fireworks. Where the hell do you get fireworks from? That would be
Well, this
my
is
big
planned.
thing.
This is planned and orchestrated. It's obviously a mass situation. If you look at the map and where the uprisings have happened, it's typical tactics. They're using the same tactics. They always use the same tactics. They never change tactics.
And
it's
predominantly
a race war.
democratic cities, right?
Right, and it's always over. It always is started with, somehow the death of usually a black man. They don't usually riot or protest over the death of a white person, but usually over the death of a black man, which, by the way, was tragic and horrifying.
Yeah, it was
and
unjust.
Everyone deserves justice, and who deserves justice the most is the family who's saying, don't rip down our country and harm poor innocent people in the name of our loved one who's just murdered on television.
Right.
But that being said, it is shocking what we saw, and it would trigger people to react. Anybody who has a conscience would react after seeing this man murdered right in front of our eyes for no reason. So you can understand a little bit of angst, right? If people went out in the street and started throwing some things because they're angry. But this type of what we're seeing, coordinated attacks on small business, that is definitely a plan, right?
Yeah, I literally seen on video an Antifa organizer paying black gentlemen to go break something first, and that basically would encourage other black individuals to do the same. And like I said, this hasn't even been 24 hours and these videos are surfacing. I don't even know if YouTube or Facebook can fact check that fast enough. But let's get on to our last point, okay? Because the reason that we're talking about this is because we are the Reopen NC movement. And what we're doing is trying to get every single race and ethnicity that owns a small business or is an entrepreneur, we want them back to work. So that's why we're against the riots and the violence, is because the only people that have been impacted by these violent attacks are small businesses in Main Street America. And so we have had our own little rabbit hole that we're starting to put two and two together and see that there's disruption in the Black Lives Matter and there's disruption in the Reopen NC movement, and it seems like it's coming from higher up, and it seems very deliberate.
It does seem very deliberate, and I've spoken out a number of times about Ashley and Adam Smith attempting to be violent. Now, whether they meant to be violent or not, they were violent. They had violent speech, or Ashley was arrested and claimed fake police brutality, which, just really fits in now looking back on it, how strange, trying to tie the Reopen movement and then the Blue Igloo movement together with what is going on now in the streets, which neither group that I don't know about Blue Igloo. I'm not a part of that group, and I don't know the people, but I have been trying to keep up with. They told their group, don't go down to the riots. I saw that tweet or that message on Facebook. As far as I know, they didn't go down. I can't speak for them, but the Reopen movement is not represented. But last night, the Reopen movement came up over and over again in thousands of tweets. Did I see it replayed over and over again, that the narrative is that these violent riots are white supremacists from the Blue Igloo group or are conservatives from the Reopen group. So trying to tie all of those things together, and we have discovered a number of things that are concerns.
Well, and let me tell our viewers real quick is that he had done a YouTube live video where he talked for quite a few hours, but the main part is where he said along the lines of, if this violence is necessary, you have to ask yourself one question: are you willing to die for it? Are you willing to kill for it? And the answer is yes. This is the specific statement that we're talking about throughout that whole video. And then in the next days that followed, he went to a really, really leftist journal and basically doubled down on it, where he included Blue Igloo, and it almost seems perfectly
purposeful. Did he do that on purpose?
And so when I asked him, and I'm going to quote something directly from him, I have it in writing here, and I'm willing to post it, but I'm definitely more than willing to quote it. When I asked him what he was thinking when he decided to do the leftist interview, the exclusive, which he's not talked to anybody but this leftist group, he said by first name, Jordan had given fair and balanced interviews before, but he twisted and ran with it for fame. It was a big mistake. Well, I do agree with part of that quote, and that it was a big mistake on your part, because now people with actual brain cells are starting to put two and two together.
Right. And if he was doing it to discredit people who are concerned about their businesses and all of the reasons why the people came down to the rally, think of the signs that we saw. Think of the pain that people are in, and there are numbers of stories that we've covered of great, decent, good people. Even some of them are Democrats. This isn't a political issue. People who have poured their life savings into their businesses, and they're being destroyed. Okay, and they're being forced to be dependent on the government, which may never rectify itself. So why would Adam go and do that and tie a peaceful movement together with the concept, because these people weren't even being violent, but the concept of them being violent, and then to pepper it with violent discussion, statements like that, after his wife was arrested purposefully. She chose to be arrested after calling for civil disobedience and trying to start a riot, and then putting out videos claiming fake police brutality. And she wanted to get attention for that, obviously. All of these little pieces together go one of two ways. They were either doing it on purpose and had infiltrated our group to try to steer it all kinds of crazy town, or they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing.
Well, and let me
take
one step further, because there's a key ingredient in this, and I just want people to know that what we're doing here is we're giving you actual facts, okay, in order to paint a picture, because there's another narrative that sounds eerily close, and that is the progressive Antifa movement, with their sit-downs and their bully techniques and their freedom of speech unless you don't agree with what they say. You know, I know that Carrie got bullied pretty hard, and all we tried to do was bring people to the table. Often, you know, you're catching a lot of slack right now, or flack, I should say.
Oh, yes, I am.
For having your website, but people don't understand is that website was built and attempted to give it to them as part of the movement, and they refused it twice. And it wasn't until after that second time that you were like, hey, you know, I'm writing all these great stories. Whether they want help or not, I'm going to continue to boost them up and write stories that are true. And basically,
well, and think about it, Jax. One of my first articles, and I started it over at Medium because I had gotten off of my national platform and said I want to just cover what's going on in North Carolina right now. And one of the first things that I did was I interviewed you on my Facebook, right? Yeah. And then I picked that up and I wrote about it on Medium. But you know, you're not going to get a lot of views on Medium, and I want these stories to be big. Now look where you are, right?
Yeah, but so what happened? What happened when you started posting stories about me?
Yeah, people go crazy because it's a great story, right? I could do great stories all day long.
Hold on. I'm leading you out of this rabbit hole. You ready?
All right.
What did Reopen NC do?
Reopen NC.
Specifically, Ashley, Adam, and Adam.
Oh, yeah. Well, then they found me and asked me to do the same thing for Ashley. They wanted me to get the same media for Ashley that I had gotten for you. And I said, Well, I don't think that's possible, but you need to start a movement. You need to start posting stories about businesses. You need to start talking about the different people who are doing things, and create a movement on a website.
Right, and their
Yeah,
actions
that's what I
basically weren't speaking volumes for the guy, for
right.
people who haven't had the honor of coming down and seeing what I do. I get arrested. I'll sit outside your house with a bullhorn. I'll go down to your legislative building. I'll
Right.
stand there like the meanest looking tattooed dude and be like, "Yo, did you really vote for this bill back in 1987?" Because most of these people have been in office forever. Not really. That I didn't really do that last part, but the other things were very much true. And
Right.
and we're leaving somebody out of this mix. And what we did was, once we started to gain a little bit of perspective on the movement, we realized that it seemed like it was purposefully being ruined. And
Mhm.
we had the hearts of hundreds of thousands of people weighing on our shoulders. We still do today. And so we reached out to somebody who walked away fairly early and tried to bring her back to the table. And
Mhm.
basically, upon talking to her, I have things like, upon telling them, hey, they gave me an ultimatum, and these are exact quotes that I'm giving you right now, people. I'm showing you right from my phone, right from the crow's mouth. They gave me an ultimatum too. They're assholes on a power trip, not godly at all. And then I would continue to say, hey, they talk a big game about God and all this, and these are exact quotes from Kristen, okay? And we're name dropping today because we're tired of the bully mob tactics that they're using. They make them seem more progressive than anything else. And the
Yeah,
next
it
the
really
next
does.
reply I get back is pure Satan. All right. Upon talking to her and letting her know that, hey, we want you to come back to the table, because we have a majority of the people who started the reopen movement,
And
including the
can I?
original founder of
Yes.
the Reopen NC page. Go ahead.
Can I add something? What we were trying to do was give everybody free publicity and free stories about what they were doing, and create a big movement for everybody. And Ashley and Adam and their press person Stephen, and it ended up Kristen, lost their minds. And it's completely irrational, because all we were doing was writing stories about all the great things that everyone was doing.
And you know
So
what else?
think about that.
Let me add to that is that all that we asked, we had one stipulation, is that instead of one or two or three people being the boss, we were going to let 10 people be the boss, and that basically a round table. All you had to do was come to the table, and the popular consensus, that means 6 out of 10 people agree with you, then we would roll with it, because we've seen lots of PR mistakes and huge backstepping on the part of very either
The violence. Yeah,
unthoughtful words or purposefully planted words.
yeah, and tying it together with purposeful arrests that, for standing on a sidewalk, like that kind of thing, and then the statements of violence and going to war and killing people. That was so that's such bad PR. Why would you do that? That's so. That just be that they did it. They were bristling against knowing that we weren't going to appreciate their message, or it could have something to do with the fact that they didn't really want the entire movement elevated in a good light, because
Right.
their intent was to make it look like we were violent
Well, it
and
sure
out of
does seem that
control.
way. And so for the
Well,
the
it's
very last words that I ever heard from Kristen were, I ask that you withdraw everything, live and let live. This doesn't look good for you, Jax. Well, let me tell you something, Missy. You don't know what kind of bear I am until you've seen the vein pop out of my fucking forehead. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I hope that we're going to be doing some work on ReopenC website. But if you go there, you'll see that what I'm doing is I am writing about, and hopefully more stories of businesses. I have those two people of importance to get on their social media. So if you're a small business owner and you're listening, please contact me because I want to interview you and get you up to someone who could help you, perhaps. But the thing about Ashley and Kristen and Adam and Steven, their press person, and the little gang of mafia, backstabbing craziness is taking away from the movement. But not just that. It's actually mimicking a lot of what Black Lives Matter has gone through with Antifa. Of course, on a much smaller scale, but if all we ever did was prevent everyone from getting tied together with the violence that's going on downtown in Raleigh, it was worth it. It's mind-boggling. It's going down the rabbit hole is exhausting. But if we helped to combat their agenda, if that's what their agenda was, then good, I'm glad, because we need to know who's really causing these problems. And I happen to know it's not the people who started Black Lives Matter. I know. I hope that part still comes out.
Yeah,
so
and
thanks.
It seems the same way for us. So definitely reaching a hand out. If anybody from the Black Lives Matter movement sees this podcast, I would love to have you on. I want to discuss this. I want to get your dialogue out there. I would love to be the guy on the other side of the microphone talking to you about what really matters to Black lives. Okay? So definitely hit me up. Carrie, you're the bomb diggity. I always love having you, and definitely going to have you on again. You broke up a little bit there, so I'm just going to reiterate that if you're a small business and you're going through the struggle, hit Carrie Donovan up. You can hit her up at fatjacksmedia@gmail.com. Definitely go to www.reopennc.com and get some real news in your life, because I'm telling you what, people are really digging those stories. Yeah, thank you again, Carrie, for coming on, and
thanks, Jack.
I'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. And so there you have it, folks. The real deal, just the way it is. We risk a lot by saying some of the stuff that we say, but you know what? It's the truth, so fuck them. We put the chips out on the table and we let you decide. All cards facing up. This isn't a game. This is our lives. And so when people want to play and leftists want to do their thing and disrupt American dreams, well, I tell you what, there's one thing that no matter what, you can walk into any room at any given time and just drop this bomb on the table and can't nobody say nothing. It's called the truth. I looked really evil when I said that, but I mean it. It's the truth. If you put the absolute truth out there on the table, can nobody deny it? There isn't anything that could swat your story away or any of that stuff, because the truth is the truth. There's no combating the truth. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of injustice has been going on for a lot of years, and the Black Lives Matter movement really needs people to understand that. All lives do matter. All of us are human, but until you've lived that type of life where you're looked at funny just for driving your car, you live in certain areas where it just seems like you were born there and you're never going to get out there, until you take an interview with an equally qualified candidate and get denied and not given a reason why, you have no choice. So I encourage everybody to get out there and start a dialogue. How you doing? How you doing today, bro? Talk to me. How can I help? Do you want help? Is there something I could do? And any reasonable person with a reasonable request is going to be able to talk with you. And so with that being said, so I mean, what's the fix, right? Well, first of all, if you'd like, you can come out tomorrow in front of the governor's mansion with me. I bring my little bullhorn right here, and I let people speak. Not that you can't do it on your own. It's just that some people, like we have a lot of families that aren't necessarily the type of people to get up and speak. So if you need somebody to speak for you, that's why I'm there. 11 o'clock, we park in the parking lot next to the library, right next to the governor's mansion, and we're going to go down there and we'll do what we call the bullhorn. I forget what we call it. Me on a bullhorn, okay? Lots of people. It's all peaceful. We're not gonna boast profanities or anything like that. We're going to be perfectly respectful. We're going to do the opposite of what everybody else thinks that we will. Okay? So what's the fix? Well, my take on it is that the media has tried to separate us on the protest line because we are so close to coming together that it scares them. All tricks are out of the bag now. How do we battle an enemy that's had 60 years to organize? Well, I think the first thing is to recognize ethnic boundaries. You cannot go through life thinking that in the last 100 years that there aren't still struggles through ethnic backgrounds. Because there are. Second, recognize that the Black Lives Matters movement isn't about black people not being able to fight for themselves. They are powerful people. So if you're not black, do not go spray painting and vandalizing shit and making their cause look bad. If you go, do no harm, okay? White people and Antifa have done more damage than anyone, and guess who gets the blame, right? Black Lives Matter does. There's a difference between being an agitator and being somebody that's standing behind somebody's ethnic stance and fight, okay? Let me see where I was, man. I started to get that vein again. Second, the movement we are... Let me switch cameras here. The movement we are empowered by information. Okay, let me start. Let me use my words here. The movement we are empowered by information, the quicker that we see from the same looking glass. That doesn't make any sense, but let me just say that the quicker that we are empowered by information and knowledge and knowing who we are battling, the quicker that we can see through the same hourglass. Okay, mainstream media is hurting all causes, especially the American dream. And podcasts, blogs, and citizen journalism is where the new normal needs to exist. There is unity in this when we get out of our head, out of our asses, and reach across the dividing lines and pull one another together. Yes, progressives and Antifa have had 60 years to organize, but it's 60 years to the 345 years of capitalism. We got this. We gotta figure out who the people are that aren't supposed to be there. We got this. Reach out of your comfort zone and be on high alert. Communism is real, propaganda is real, and the social divide is real. Let's break it down. Don't forget to show up and stand tomorrow at the Constitution or Nothing Bullhorn rally. I give everybody a chance to speak that wants to speak. We just ask that, there's business owners, children, and we want to keep it civil. We want to basically saying that there was only one slip up in the very first one we did where somebody was driving around the block with a camera flicking us off and saying fuck you. And one of our elders got upset and walked right up to that car and flicked him off with the most angry face that you can imagine. And then all of a sudden the next day on a leftist news blog site, Reddit, we have somebody that has portrayed us as these violent, people that we weren't being unreasonable at all. They just hit us the wrong way, We're going to meet at the parking lot at 100 Jones Road at 11 a.m. Definitely come early. I'd love to meet you. Love to talk about your story. I'm officially inviting Black Lives Matter. I would love to talk to you. I would love to unite together. We can help you. We're not even asking for help. We just want to help because we've been going through it, constantly since this whole COVID shit showed up. And so we've got some fresh new techniques that we would love to give to you and help you with. And we would love to help you no matter what. this George thing, man. It's really gotten to my heart, and I think the Floyd family has given me a lot of hope that there is change coming, and positive change, not political change, just from the hearts of people. And like I said, I really want to help. Let's see here. Basically, after the Bullhorn meet and greet there across from Governor Cooper's mansion, what I also love to do is take people over to the legislative building. You can call and you can email all day long. When I'm talking to somebody on the phone, I'm making all kinds of faces. I'm standing there naked sometimes, maybe not. But there's a big, huge difference when somebody can match a face to that email or that voice that they hear on the phone, and you stand right in the doorway of your legislator and say, "Sir, why did you do this? What the hell are you thinking?" And maybe it's just praise, you know what I mean? But often stepping into an establishment like that, you're thinking, this looks like jail from the outside, or this is very intimidating building, or all these people are in suit and ties, and here I am in this fluorescent green camo shirt and shorts. It don't matter. They work for you. Be the arrogant boss that's like, oh, dress code. They all got to wear suit and ties. I wear what I want because I own this piece. You know what I'm saying? Because that's who we are. They work for us. So allow me to take you around the legislative building afterwards. I would love to have you take pictures, do whatever, show you how it works. All right? And just to kind of sum it up, right? The American dream dies if we don't stand up. And do you really think killing the American dream doesn't come with a whole bunch of unknown that may be worse than where we are now? Take some questions and offer consolidation to anyone suffering right now. Help someone who asks for help, and stand with those who need bracing up. Make sure that you know about depression and the types of things that depression does to people. Okay? My boy David, man, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have done everything. And there was resources out there because I had never dealt with this as an outsider looking in to try and help somebody that was suffering from suicide. Okay? So right now, if you know anybody that is suffering real bad and you don't know what to do, there's a national suicide prevention hotline. And they're not just there for people that are currently in the process of committing suicide. They're there to help you, empower you to help your friend that might be committing suicide. So I'm going to drop that number right now. It's 1-800-273-8255. And please, trust me on this. It's worth it. It's worth it to get that information. Your friend, your family, your veteran in your family is worth it. Man, reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline and get those tips. Help those people. Reach out to other people who are willing to help. I know if you reach out to me, I'm going to try and help. And I just love to give a shout out to the DV Farms. That's the Dysfunctional Veterans Farm. They offer rehabilitation and consolidation for anybody that might be homeless as a veteran or addicted as a veteran. But you got to know, man, your people are there for you, but you got to be willing to make that stand. You got to make the first push, man, and they'll be with you all the way, man. Thank you to Dan Bongino, man. You're a patriot. I'm always gonna holler your name. If it wasn't for you, man, I may not ever have this platform that I'm on right now. So thank you so much for that. I apologize. Amber came in halfway through the show and told me that you guys couldn't hear the videos, but I guarantee you, I tried to commentate them. Definitely go on there and look. And I'll repost this to YouTube in a couple of days or so after I'm done editing it. All right. Make sure you go check out the Reopen NC Review. That's the newspaper articles at www.reopennc.com. And thank you so much, Carrie, for your great work. And last but not least, keep making a stand, Patriots. We'll have our day. I'll be with you here in the comments section over there to your right. Even when the music's playing at the exit here. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we will see you 6 o'clock next Monday. Thanks, y'all.
Right here in the dirty South, right quick to run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, the bitch don't run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, right here in the dirty South. I met Lucifer one day at the crossroads, man. That bitch was clean pulled up in the caddy sedan. First thing I saw was them gator skin boots with long black locks and them glowing red roots. Right then I had to stop and let the dust settle. My Glock was cocked 'cause he was packing that metal. He asked me, are you ready to sell your soul? I told him no, follow by an asshole. And right here in the dirty South, right quick to run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, the bitch don't run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, right here in the dirty South.
Backward boy, and you know we coming for all. Every time I walk by, I make you feel small, cause this is me and I'm 10 foot tall. Always ready to ball. Started to walk, never learned how to crawl. Backward boy, and you know we living hard. Should've took my name and turned it into a boulevard. Cause right here in the dirty South, you get quick to get popped in your mouth.
Yeah, and every time you see my face, realize no one can take my place. 'Cause this is me and I am one of a kind. God put me here to suffer on the grind. Right here in the dirty South, right quick to run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, the bitch don't run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South, right here in the dirty South, right here in the dirty South, right quick to run your mouth. Right here in the dirty South.